Good evening and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center's Space status update. And welcome to our Artemis II status update. Communications. I'm Rachel Craft with several NASA managers this evening. I'm joined by several NASA managers this evening to talk about our recent send 4 astronauts on the Artemis II mission to the moon, and about how the test flight is going overall. About how the test flight is going overall. Dr. Lori Glaze, who leads NASA's Artemis program, who leads NASA's Artemis program, Ascent Flight Director for the mission, Ascent Flight Director for the mission, Orion Program Manager. And Howard Hugh, Orion Program Manager. We'll have some opening remarks and then take questions. We'll have some opening remarks.
72, during Apollo 17, human beings have left Earth orbit. With Artemis II's successful 5-minute and 50-second translunar injection burn this evening, our 4 crew members, NASA astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, are now on their trajectory toward the moon. The burn was executed by our flight operations team here in Houston, and it was flawless. The burn was the last major firing of this mission. From this point forward, the laws of orbital mechanics are going to carry our crew to the moon, around the far side, and back to Earth. Our crew is healthy, and our spacecraft is performing really well. After we've had a series of checkouts since launch, and again, everything really performing pretty well. And we are on the path that we designed for this mission. But just a reminder, again, you can hear us keep saying it over and over again, this is still a test flight. We are getting, and we're going to continue to get, lots of new data every day, important information as we continue learning how we're going to operate this Orion spacecraft in the actual space environment. And I'll tell you, we're already learning a lot as we go. We've encountered several things along the way. We're not really tracking anything right now that's of concern, but anything that we've encountered since we've launched was brought to our mission management team today and discussed, and the satisfactory path forward on every case, and a unanimous decision to proceed forward with the go for the translunar injection burn. So you'll hear a little bit more about some of that here in a minute, all the things that we've been doing. As a reminder, we got 8 days of work ahead, and we intend to learn as much as we can, everything that we can that this vehicle can teach us. And with that, let's see, before I do that, we had a couple images we wanted to share. Let's see if we can pull some of those up. I wanted to share one of my favorite images. This one I saw last night. Actually, I was getting onto the plane to fly here from Florida. This one popped up, and I just absolutely love this one. Looking out the window, you can see the solar array wing there and the OMS engine from the Orion spacecraft, and then you can see Earth's crescent in the back. I just thought it was absolutely gorgeous with our crew members being able to see out the window there and get that photo. It's just absolutely beautiful. And then the second image I wanted to show you, you'll hear a lot more from Howard about the proximity operations demonstration that was conducted yesterday evening. And let's see, is that one going to come up?
It's coming back.
It's coming back. There it is. And in this image, you can see Victor Glover on the left there. He was using the manual controls to maneuver the spacecraft. And then Reid Wiseman on the right there was calling out the commands. So it was really, I hope some of you got a chance to watch that. I was riveted. It was absolutely spectacular to hear Victor's narration of the whole activity. So super cool. So with all of that, I am going to hand it over to Judd, and he can talk us through some of the technical details about the flight so far.
All right. Thanks, Lori. It's been a great couple of days to be in the space business. Yesterday, SLS put us right on the money during ascent. We started with some checkouts by the crew from both the water dispenser and the toilet. Those were successful. And ICPS then burned us with our perigee raise maneuver, got us in a stable orbit. We did have a brief comm outage. That was due to a ground issue that we have now rectified, and we understand that's not going to be a problem henceforth. And then, let's see, the ICPS then gave us a great amount of energy, put us in high Earth orbit with the apogee raise burn. Again, right down the money. So really happy with that burn. After that, as Lori mentioned, Victor did the Prox-ops demonstration, gave us a lot of great feedback on how the vehicle responds in preparation for future rendezvous operations. So very valuable data. We also checked out all of the carbon dioxide scrubbers, all 3 beds successfully checked out, and CO2 is doing great in the vehicle. We did, once we were done with the Prox-ops demonstration, the ICPS on its own did the automatic deploy of the 4 CubeSats, and then also ICPS did its disposal burn, and so that all went well. In the middle of the crew sleep, we also had them wake up and do the perigee raise burn, and that was 100% successful. Got us again back into a stable orbit, raised our perigee to about 100 nautical miles. So we're happy with that performance as well. This morning, the crew woke up. They had a conference with the flight control team and our lead flight director, Jeff Radigan. Went over some details of anything that they had, changes to the timeline, which were minimal. They did an exercise test of the flywheel. That was successful. Reed reported that it was exactly like training. His arms were really tired, and he got a great cardio workout. So we took some samples of what the carbon dioxide was while we were doing exercise, and that was all great as well. And of course, just a little under an hour ago, we did the translunar injection, which sets us up for the free return around the moon and also for splashdown in San Diego. So with that, I'll hand it over to Howard to give you some more details on the Orion.
All right, thanks, Judd. Really excited to be here. Wow, what a great 2 days, huh? I haven't slept, I don't think, very much over the last 24 hours, just following all the things that have happened for the Orion spaceship. We had a perfect ride uphill, got into orbit, spent a good day, just checking out systems. And getting ready for TLI that Lori talked about, and a successful TLI and a really great precision burn that we just had. But I'll talk about the things that we accomplished yesterday. Yesterday, as you know, we did a proximity operations demonstration with the centerline camera and with the spacecraft. I call it test driving the car. It's been an awesome event for all the engineers and the team that's worked on it to hear Victor and Reed talk about our spaceship and the work that we put in to put into this capability for manual flying. I would say that, first of all, we accomplished all the test objectives that we set out for this proximity operations. We had 2 precision tests, and I'll describe a little bit about what those were. But I'll send with a picture first to show you and describe. This is a very close-in picture, these 3 pictures. On the, I guess, upper left of the picture is our centerline docking target right in the middle. It's a standoff cross that you'll see. It's a 2-foot wide target. This is the target that we're going to use for future missions. So this is the exact flight configuration that we would use. So it was really important that we got that on the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. So we were able to get that on that stage, and what we do, as I describe it, is as we separate from the ICPS, we do a backflip, 5 degrees per second, and we back away all the way as far in this demonstration was about 400 feet. And that back away scenario, that allows us to have a good standoff understanding. We're pretty far away, not this picture, but I'll talk a little bit about where this is going. Then we start doing what I call coarse manual piloting. And this allows, and you might have heard this, what Victor was doing was basically moving side to side with the spaceship, up and down, and then doing the rotation pitch, roll, yaw, making sure that the response from the spacecraft and the performance is what he's seeing. And the reason it's coarse is because you're so far away at 400 feet that you want to make sure you have big maneuvers so you can see the target going out of your field of view a little bit, okay? So that's what we did at the initial part, and then we slowly started coming in and approaching the vehicle. And that picture that you see in the upper left side is almost to 33 feet. It's about 40 feet away, I think. And that's where we will do what I call fine manual piloting. So we're just doing a little bit of the same thing, side to side, up and down, doing the pitch, roll, and yaw maneuver and handling. And you heard that if you watched closely, and some great commentary. Especially, it was heartwarming to hear. I know I talked to some of our team members today, to hear that how well their baby worked, operating precisely. That is exactly what we wanted to do, holding the attitude and being able to maneuver very well and described, I think, just very excitedly by Reed and both Reed and Reed and Victor. I think it's really a great a moment for all of us who have been working in this arena to get this demonstration off. And of course, that wasn't the end of it. We did back away to about 65 feet, and we let the ICPS do a maneuver, and then we had another target, what we were calling this two-dimensional target. So it didn't have a standoff cross like we did on the ICPS nose. What we did was add a good 2-degree target or two-dimensional target on the spacecraft, on the ICPS, and then we did the same maneuver, but a little different. This maneuver was what we call 6-degree of freedom maneuver, where we were tracking and also maneuvering by rotating as well. So you're translating and rotating at the same time, and that allowed you to have a different characteristic of the vehicle performance in a manual piloting approach. And we were also able to go to this 33-foot range. So really important demonstration of both the fine and coarse handling of the spaceship for future missions as we go forward. And that was something that we wanted to make sure we brought down some risk. And you saw the images of the centerline camera, and performance was outstanding. And of course, the crew was outstanding. They did a terrific job. I actually flew the simulator. I did not qualify for this mission, unfortunately. So I definitely wasn't ready for this kind of mission. But Victor just did terrific and followed everything. And I saw the track today in terms of predictions, and I got to give kudos to him. He followed it right along, and it was a really great opportunity to demonstrate our capability. So that was a really important demonstration and test of our rendezvous and Prox-ops capabilities that we're going to need for the future. But also in that 24-hour period, we had to obviously demonstrate our readiness for translunar injection. We were able to really track a lot of the subsystems that we've learned from on Artemis I, but also the most important subsystem when we put humans on board is the life support system. And I'm happy to report that the performance of the CO2 scrubber, the ability to distribute water, control the temperature inside the cabin is exactly as we predicted, and in some cases better. And so that was really great. And of course, across all the other subsystems that we demonstrated in Artemis I, like power generation, was better than predicted. Also, over 13 kilowatts of power generation, and our ability to control, like I said, the inside cabin and control the temperature across all the parts of the spacecraft was right on and nominal. So that was really good to see. And of course, we were ready to execute the TLI burn today. And our guidance navigation control system was ready to go and demonstrated through this burn its ability to handle this type of burn and the precision that's needed to take us to the moon and come back into Earth's atmosphere. So really great overall demonstration of the Prox-ops, really great demonstration of the core subsystems that we have on board the spaceship that's required to execute the rest of the days of this Artemis II mission. And finally, I would say that we had, I would say, really great opportunity to just understand our overall performance across all these subsystems and making sure that we're ready to commit the crew to a safe journey to the moon and back. And we demonstrated that over the last 24 hours. We were able to, as Lori said, have a mission management team review of that and determined that we were go for TLI. And I'm just really happy that we're headed to the moon. Thank you.
All right, it's time now for questions. We'll start here in the room, and then we have several on the phone. A reminder, please raise your hand if you're here. We'll have a mic coming around. And then if you are joining by phone, *1 can get you into the question queue. And we will begin in the
phenomenally. And then does the performance and Victor's piloting during that exercise give you confidence in Orion's handling for the maneuvers contemplated in Artemis II with one or two of the HLS?
Yeah, no issues with the thrusters. They perform nominally and the performance is excellent. Relative to future confidence, this gives us a lot of confidence in terms of close in. I've talked previously about being on the docking axis. It's very important for the crew because unlike Orbiter, where we were able to have situation awareness from the windows, when we approach closely, we are very dependent on the cameras and the LiDAR that will be on Artemis III and above for our relative navigation. And so this was a really good exercise of that. And of course, hearing the crew in a preliminary way through verbally, but we'll look at the data very closely and get the post-flight report from them in detail. I think at first indication that the vehicle performed better than obviously they expected. And I think, for us, it was really good understanding of how the human-in-the-loop part worked. We know precisely what our capabilities are when we have automated capability, but having a crew in the loop and demonstrating their capabilities and being able to hold and be able to execute a translational and rotational maneuvers and being able to do that precisely is really outstanding. And I look forward to them coming back home, telling us all the nuances. I'll be sitting in hours with them and questioning them on how they felt about it and what the responses were based on the pulses they put in. But yes, it's very, very heartwarming to hear that from the crew. And of course, even better to get the technical data and play that forward.
Go ahead.
Mark Kirkman with NSF. This is probably for a combination of both Judd and Howard. Now that we're committed with TLI, during Translunar Coast, the attitude you're going to hold, what are the out-the-view windows for the crew? Are they going to be, what are they going to be able to see Earth with regard to Earth or the Moon? And also, prior to the flight, you were talking about based on TLI, what they would get to see when they do the close observation. It was based on the sun angle of high, medium, or low. What did we end up getting based on the launch day and the TLI that we're in? And if you don't mind, just based on what he said, I'd like to follow up with Howard. It sounds like, based on what Ike said and you said, that the handling qualities, tight, deadbeat damping, that this is better than you predicted. Is that a true statement?
You want me to start first and
go ahead.
talk about that? I would say that, predictions are hard. There's a human in the loop kind of element, and we practice that. So I would say, yes, definitely maybe better than we anticipated in a lot of ways because there's variations by which we go into space. On a closed loop control system, For guidance, navigation, control, when you have an automated system, you know precisely and you predict exactly how the system will respond. The crew is well trained, and Victor did exactly what he needed to do, and the spacecraft responded.
As far as where the vehicle will be pointed, most of the time we spend in a tail to sun attitude. So we take the back end of the vehicle, point it towards the sun, and so whatever the geometry is, you know, that's what you get. We sometimes have the advantage when we have good power balance, we can move the solar arrays that have cameras on the end, and we can move those around and see what, you know, look back at the Earth or look forward at the moon. Also on, you know, flight day 6, whenever we do the lunar closer approach, we'll change attitude, make sure that the crew has those views of the lunar surface. As far as the lighting of the moon, this was a lower lighting day that we launched. I think it was in the 20 to 30%, 20% lit you know, area. So we'll still get good you know, shots from the crew. We'll still get great descriptions, you know, from their, you know, Mark I eyeballs. But you know, I mean, we're going around the moon, so that's the main thing, right? I mean.
Okay, we'll take 2 more on the end here, and then we'll go to the phone. So go ahead, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie Waddle, CNN. Quick question for Howard. I know Victor said that he was going to give the Cooper-Harper rating scales during the Prox-ops. Are you able to share those numbers? Just curious to know how it handled. And then also would love to just ask a general question about the crew, how they're adjusting to orbit. Specifically curious about the first-time flyer and whether there's any space adaptation syndrome without, you know, invading privacy. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm sure we can share the Cooper-Harper handling qualities. I mean, we did assessments with the simulator, and we'll do it as part of this demonstration, and love to hear that feedback. I think we got some additional feedback, like I said, but look forward to that. Yeah, definitely. But I'll let Judd answer the other question about the crew.
As far as the crew members, they're doing great. There's no indication that they're having any problems at all. So I don't expect that they're having any problems.
Hi, Lauren Grush with Bloomberg. Thanks so much and congratulations again. I wanted to ask about the troubleshooting of the toilet that happened on that first day. Can you just explain to us what the issue was and how they fixed it? And on a priority scale, would you say this was a #1 priority or a #2?
So when, you know, we had always planned to wet the toilet with some water that we had pulled out of the PWD, the potable water dispenser, and it turns out, I guess, we didn't put enough in, and so the pump was not fully wetted, and so it has automatic fault detection in that if it's not you know, fully wetted, it'll shut itself down. So once we figured out that we didn't put enough water in, we put more in there, made sure that it was essentially primed, the pump was primed, and then the toilet came right back up.
I will say that in addition, a good kind of byproduct of this, while we're working through those procedures, we were able to check out the secondary vent line for the urine as well. And so that was a good, that's an alternate path. If we could not go with the primary line, we were able to bend out on the secondary line, and we were able to demonstrate that. And we didn't demonstrate it today, the primary vent line through the working toilet. So I think both lines are working well, and really happy about that.
Yeah, I'll just add real quickly that I think, you know, this is a great example of some of the procedural things as we're learning to work and live in the Orion capsule. You know, we've got real humans in there. They're trying to live and learn, and you know, we're gonna learn things along the way. Oops, we need to do this. We need to prime it first. This is the kind of things we're going to get.
All right, we'll take several questions from the phone now, and we'll start with Marcia Dunn from the Associated Press.
Oh yes, hi. Good evening. I have a question probably for you, Lori. Could you just sort of, or anybody really, could you talk about the stress level in mission control prior to the TLI burn? I mean, were you really sweating it there? And now that that's done, do you have any new revised numbers for the lunar flyby distance? Do you still think the Orion's going to go 4,000 miles past the moon before turning around, maybe closer to 5,000. Any new lunar distance numbers from today? Thanks.
Hey, Marcia, thanks for the questions. I'll let Judd speak to what the mood was like down in Mission Control. I was actually sitting up observing the room and listening in on the loops, and everything was, it seemed like it was going very smoothly. They always seem so calm and controlled down there in Mission Control. Up in the room where I was with several other folks, as soon as we counted down and we started that burn, we just sat in silence and watched the clock go and waited for that statement that said the burn was complete. And it was just wonderful to just sit there, watch, enjoy it, and say, we've done this. So it's a great accomplishment. We're really proud of all the teams that got us to this point. Let's see, the second question, about the distance. So the anticipated distance, I believe, was around 4,600 miles from the surface, is that right? And it's a good burn, so I'm anticipating we'll be pretty close to that, but I don't know that anyone's done the actual calculation yet.
Yeah, assuming that we had a nominal burn, which we did, the max distance that our folks calculated was 219,639 nautical miles max distance from the Earth.
Yeah, okay.
So, as far as the mood in Mission Control, these teams have done lots and lots of simulations, and so I would say they're consummate professionals. Everybody, even with the sensor problems that we had, able to do the TLI and get us through everything, perfectly. So, I mean, I wouldn't say there's any stress level at all.
Yeah, maybe, Lori, I'll jump in on the mission evaluation room that supports the flight control team. I was in there with the team, and, we have high confidence in our main engine. We've operated several times on Artemis I, and, of course, we operated the upper stage separation burn as well. And I'll just tell you, everybody was standing, not so much nervous, just excitement. And then in one of our conference rooms where we had a couple of GNC experts with us, we geeked out and talked about TGO, VGO, Lambda, Lambda dot, and teaching class on how these burns were calculated, what the guidance targets were, and it was really fun to listen to that while we waited for the TIG. So it was really fun.
All right, our next question on the phone line is from Andrea Leinfelder with the Houston Chronicle.
Hi, I have a question on the exercising. So I was watching the video when Reed was exercising, and I know Mission Control kind of started chuckling because you could see the movement. So I was wondering if you'd kind of quantify a little bit how much it was moving. I know it was expected, but I'm still curious to know how much. Also, just a technical question. Would you say that Orion was in high Earth orbit or low Earth orbit during the TLI burn, just because it seems so close to the Earth? Thanks.
Can we take that? Let's see. As far as the exercise, the flywheel machine, it's a little bit like a rowing machine. I think you saw that. I mean, are you asking? I didn't quite understand the question. Like, how much movement does the capsule do while we're doing the movement? Is that the question? Yeah, I don't think we saw anything that we didn't expect.
Yeah, you'll see some solar array dynamics, which is expected, but it didn't perturb any of our control where we've had to make any adjustment, big burns or anything like that to control the attitude, is where you would hear or get affected by those dynamics. Of course, we'll look at the data. I wasn't sitting in front of the data console today, but I just saw it on the videos that were coming down, and we'll talk to the team, but we didn't expect anything different. I asked our guidance navigation guys if there was any issues, and they said nope, didn't see any issues relative to exercise. And then, of course, we'll always look at the data and go by that, but looks good so far.
Let's see, and the other question was, were we in a high Earth orbit when we did TLI? Yes, technically we were, but we were at the lowest part, perigee, of the orbit, so we're about 100 nautical miles off the Earth's surface, traveling about 23,000 and change miles per hour. And so because we did the TLI burn, now that takes us out of the high Earth orbit and gets us on that free return trajectory to the side of the moon.
Okay, next up is Nell Greenfield-Boyce with NPR.
Hey, can you hear me okay? Thanks
Yes.
for having this briefing. I would appreciate hearing a little more about the water dispenser situation. It sounded like just before the burn, they were doing what they were calling like water ops, and they were bagging up water in plastic bags. Could you just go over exactly what the issues were with the dispenser and why it was decided to have backup water and how much water the astronauts actually bagged up? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So during ascent, so we have 4 water tanks in the Orion service module, and each one of those tanks has an isolation valve between them. The isolation valve between the middle 2 tanks failed closed during ascent, and so it essentially isolated 2 tanks on one side and 2 tanks on the other. Each end of those tanks goes to one of 2 different water dispensers, a primary and a secondary, so we have full access to all of the water. However, in an abundance of caution, we decided probably good, just in case we have a subsequent failure of an isolation valve, to bag some water, and so that's exactly what we did. We're going to bag some water in the cabin and preserve that just in case we have a subsequent failure.
Okay, our next question is from Joey Roulette with Reuters.
Hey, thanks. I just wanted to clarify the predicted maximum distance from Earth. Did you say 219,000 miles? And is that based on, and that's based on the TLI burn that was just done today, right?
Those are predicts prior to us performing the TLI burn, so that assumed a perfect TLI burn, so I haven't gone and run those numbers again.
And just real quick, the reason I asked, of course, is because that's far below the record breaking for Apollo 13. Is that your guys' understanding, I guess?
That's in nautical miles. So the Apollo distance record in nautical miles was about 216,000 nautical miles.
Okay, our next question is from Jackie Mogensen with Scientific American.
Hi, thanks for this. I have a bit of a general question and then a specific one. The general one is, how do you feel like everything is it going to plan, and are there any concerns you're keeping an eye on at this point? And then more specifically, I was curious if you could tell us about what to expect from the first high-res images and video, as well as when we might see the solar eclipse. Thank you.
I think I'll take a stab. It's echoing in here, so it's kind of hard to hear the question. But I think the first one is how things are going. Is there anything we're tracking? And I'll just look over at my colleagues. But, things are going really well. I think we couldn't be more pleased with how well things are going. Right now, we're not tracking any issues of concern. As I said, we're learning from the spacecraft, but that's what we anticipate, and we're not tracking anything. We went straight into the TLI with absolute confidence that we can complete the rest of this mission as planned. I think the other part of the question had to do with some of the imaging and expectations for when we'll get some of those back, in particular the eclipse. I'm really excited about the eclipse that we're probably going to encounter now as part of this mission. I think the crew's excited about it as well. I know they did a little training to learn about what they're going to see. It'll be really cool when they're out and beyond the moon, be able to look back with the moon eclipsing the sun. They'll be able to see the sun's corona. That's kind of a cool, exciting thing to do. So they've been trained on it, and they're looking forward to it.
Okay, we'll come back here in the room for other questions. Let's start here in the second row.
Hi, Michael Atkinson, Houston Public Media. There was a little bit of online chatter about the Outlook issues that were happening with Reed Wiseman. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what exactly was going on with that.
Yeah, this is not uncommon. We have this on station all the time. Sometimes Outlook has issues getting configured, especially when you don't have a network that's directly connected. And so essentially we just had to reload his files on Outlook, to get it working.
Okay, go ahead.
Richard Two with the Post newspaper. A question for Howard. You talked earlier about a ground issue related to the communications problem. Can you explain that a little bit more? Was it literally like a loose screw, or was it something underground cabling, maybe a resistance issue? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Thank you.
Yeah, I can take that. So we have a processor at White Sands ground terminal. It's called a serial communication processor. In order to get return telemetry, it has to translate the radio messages to something that our front-end processors at MCC can understand. So that processor is supposed to be in a configuration for nominal S-band Orion telemetry. When we essentially found a bug that we didn't know was there before. So when we did our checkouts, part of our checkout is to put in a configuration for the emergency comm configuration. When we commanded it back to the nominal configuration, it showed that it had taken, but it did not actually. And so you basically had to go into low-level commanding to see what was the actual configuration and do that. So it's a software bug we now understand that we hadn't seen before, and so no issue with us going forward.
Okay, we'll go right here.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Beverly Casillas for Space Scout. So we talked a little bit about some of the communications anomalies and other kind of teething issues we saw on that first day of flight. And I was just curious, what would you say has been the biggest learning moment about the Orion spacecraft so far during the mission? And have there been any surprises? Thanks.
Yeah, I think the biggest learning is always first-time systems. And I always go to life support. Being able to control humidity and scrubbing CO2, which performance is really great. In fact, we're maybe becoming, we need a little bit more humidity. I think it's doing too well sometimes. But I think those are things that are, like Lori said, we're learning, we're adjusting how to operate the spaceship with actual people on board and that are actually putting out CO2 and breathing in oxygen. So I think this is one of the things that we've learned in that 24 hours. We're learning a lot. The trending data, the sensors we have on board in terms of accuracy, being able to track that very closely is something that we're going to learn. No surprises. We expect good performance from our subsystems. So we're very happy about that. And again, we knew that we would learn a lot. And the other thing we would learn a lot is what you guys were all referring to relative to caution warnings. I think, we have thousands of caution warnings on board the spaceship, and it provides a lot of good information for the crew. But also we're learning about the boundaries of these caution warning parameters and whether they're really nuisances or whether they're real issues. And I think this is one of the things that we'll learn all the way along the mission as we utilize and learn more about the spacecraft and approach all these objectives we're trying to accomplish along the way.
Okay, right here.
Hi, T.G. Mascaro with the Epoch Times. Thank you all so much, and congratulations again. My question for Lori, in terms of a little clarification on the timeline. With the eclipse, you said it'll be when they're behind the moon, so will that be on day 6? And also, is there any clarification on what part of the timeline we'll be having the ship-to-ship communication with the station?
That's definitely a question for Judd here. We'll let him, he's got the detailed timeline right in front of him.
Yes, it is flight day 6 that the crew will be behind the moon. Let's see, and your other question was?
The ship-to-ship.
Ship-to-ship comm. I think we were going to do that on flight day 8 or 9. I don't know where that ended up.
7, I believe.
Yeah, maybe it's on 7. Yep, it's flight day 7.
Okay, let's come here to the one with their hand up. Yes.
Hi, Katrina Miller for the New York Times. How fast will Orion move as it heads to the moon, like the maximum speed? And have the crew members been able to check in with their families yet, or when will this happen?
Okay, so it changes speed as it goes around in orbit. The maximum speed we just experienced at TLI which was, we started off at 23,660 miles per hour. We added about 867 miles per hour, so that's 24,500, something like that, 24,500 miles an hour. And then as we get closer to the moon will be our lowest speed around the apogee, which is around, I think, 1,300 foot per second, which I'm not going to do math in public on how many miles per hour that is. But then once we come back to Earth, it gets around that same speed, around 25,000 miles per hour as we get to entering our interface.
And have they talked to their family?
Okay. Let's actually come over to this side here in the middle. Oh, and there was the additional question about if the crew has spoken with family yet.
Yeah, I don't believe they haven't had time to talk to their families yet. They've been really busy, so we'll make time for that now that we're past TLI.
Robert Coppinger, British Interplanetary Society Spaceflight Magazine. The RCS thrusters on the service module, are they European technology or American technology? And Administrator Isaacman's distance record from one of his 2 space flights, when does integrity beat that?
Well, I would say the RCS, or Reaction Control System, if you're asking that is a European-built system. I don't know about Administrator Isaacman's distance, so I can't comment on that.
I suspect we've already broken that.
I thought we broke it when we went into the high Earth orbit.
But
when we got out to apogee, we would have already exceeded that.
Okay, was there another question? Second row here, yes. And then we'll go back to a few more from the phone.
Hi, JJ Love with Tech Talk Media. Thanks for taking my question. The viewers of our Inside NASA Innovation series are eager to understand the broader human impact of this mission. So looking beyond the boundaries of space exploration itself, which industries here on Earth stand to benefit most from what you're discovering up there? And what is being learned in the mission that will tangibly improve life for people down here?
Oh, those are some good questions. I think from the industry standpoint, I think there's a whole range of things that we're going to benefit. Number one, just thinking basically just in our production capabilities within the U.S. and around the world. But I feel certain we're going to be pushing boundaries of technologies as well, not just in the systems that we're flying on the rockets, but even in some of the things we're testing out inside the crew cabin for the crew to use, the cutting edge of technology. So a lot of amazing things there. And then what was the second part of your question? Oh, help life on Earth. It's always a wonderful question, and I really feel like the exploration that we do is just inspirational for everyone here on Earth, hopefully inspiring our young people around the world, the Artemis generation that's growing up now to want to grow and achieve and to learn and to start trying to think through where they're going to dedicate their talents as they get older and learn the different skills that we need to cut the edge of new technologies into the future.
Okay, we'll go back to the phone for several questions. Our next one is from Robert Perlman with collectspace.com.
Hi. The quote, "You'll go for TLI," is one of those iconic quotes from the Apollo years that just has held the test of time. But Michael Collins was the astronaut who coined it, and he later said that maybe he should have picked out something more momentous. I'm wondering, now having gone through a TLI, if you think that it speaks to, or not, does it hide how this burn is different from all other burns, that this is the one that you're committing to leave Earth's orbit and go to the moon, and there's no turning back. I know that you said that there wasn't extra stress, that you had practiced this over and over, but was there any moment that you actually, gulped hard that, yeah, we're going to the moon?
So the question, it was a little bit garbled. I think it was about the TLI burn and that burn being perhaps special in the minds of the team. Robert, may need to get you to say some of that again. I think we captured that, though.
Yeah, that's just. Do you think the public, when they hear "Go for TLI," or when we speak about it normally during a press conference like this, does it really convey how the momentous moment that it actually captures?
So I think what he's getting at here with the question, help me if I get this incorrectly, but you know, as we're executing on that 5-minute burn, is there a point at which our teams, as we're executing, kind of absorb the impact of just how important this burn is, and how, you know, if we don't get it all the way through the burn, then what would happen? I don't know if you want to speak to how your teams execute within the mission control. They're very measured, they're very controlled, they execute, and they're ready to respond.
Yeah, I would say we probably reflect on that after our shift, and we'll execute everything professionally, probably save the reflection for after our shift, and certainly that reflection, I suspect everybody, you know, understands that this is a once in a lifetime moment.
All right, our next question on the phone is from Christopher Mick with the Hudson Star Observer.
Thank you for taking the question and for all your time tonight. Another amazing day here in the mission. I just want to ask, I think these would be for Jed and Howard. I was wondering, the crew sounded very busy, and the time I was hearing the loops today, and I was just wondering on the astronauts' kind of individual task timelines, if they're kind of on schedule for that or falling behind at all or skipping some things. And then maybe to Howard, if there was any time for Earth observation photography, if there's any feedback from the crew on how things were going shooting through the Orion windows.
So I would say there were, as far as the timeline goes, there were a few things that the crew was not able to get to today and yesterday, and that's fine. We knew this was going to be a very, very packed first 2 days, and now once we've got past TLI, we've got lots more time to do things, and observation certainly is one of those things that the crew absolutely will be doing during their time, and they've got plenty of time now to reflect and do those other operations.
Yeah, I'll say that although, like Judd said, maybe a few things didn't get done in the schedule that was planned that could be made up, the real important one for me at least was this Prox-ops demonstration. I think we budgeted around 71 minutes. The crew finished in 65. And that was awesome because, like I said earlier, we were able to accomplish all our objectives and within that time period, because we were having to exit and leave the ICPS distance and move on towards the orbit. So having that done and getting all those objectives accomplished was very significant, and I'm really happy to do it with some margin.
Okay, our next question is from David Denault with About Space Today News.
Good evening. I have a question. Has there been a formal report issued yet on the possible damages caused by Artemis II compared to Artemis I? I understand that it caused some damage to the elevators, and it also burnt through the surface area, scorching it. Has there any report issued on that as yet?
So this is a question related to the potential damage to the Mobile Launcher 1, where we launched yesterday. We've talked many times about the ruggedization that we did to the Mobile Launcher following the Artemis I mission. And what I can tell you is that our initial assessment is showing that most of the damage is really largely cosmetic. Really, overall, everything's looking pretty good, especially compared to Artemis I. We know we're going to have some repairs that we'll need to do, but those repairs, the repairs that we made following Artemis I largely worked, so that's a good thing. We are in the process of doing an in-depth assessment of what kind of damage was received there. We do know that there were some bolts, some latching bolts that perhaps didn't hold as anticipated, and there was some, I believe, some issues down in the the firing well there, but we're still doing the assessment, so hold tight and we'll get you some more details as we better understand exactly where that mobile launcher is right now.
Okay, Philip.
Hi, Philip Sloss. I guess a quick follow-up with Lori about the mobile launcher. After the first launch, there was a pneumatic leak. You didn't see any issues in terms of the continuity with the pneumatic systems in those lines?
Everything's doing extremely well, actually, yeah. And the water suppression system was able to wash things down, so we didn't have the issues of the concerns with corrosion, the pneumatics. All of the other systems seem to fare extremely well.
Okay. And then a quick one for Judd, hopefully. On the first launch, SLS had a tiny underspeed at MECO. And I know they were looking to make some tweaks so that they would hit the exact targeted MECO. What did you see yesterday during the ascent?
Yeah, as I mentioned, right on the money.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Kaya Burgess from the Times of London. How closely did you study in planning this mission the free return slingshot trajectory of Apollo 13 in terms of the lessons to be learned of what to do similarly or what to avoid, and how different will this trajectory be from the only other time humans have taken that trajectory around the moon and back?
You take it.
Okay, so it is slightly different from Apollo 8. Apollo 8 actually went into the lunar orbit, gravity well, right? Orion doesn't have the capability or the propellant to do that, and so we're taking advantage of the gravity to slingshot Orion back around the moon. So it's quite actually in the early design of Apollo. As a matter of fact, Apollo 13 got on a free return trajectory to get it into a minimum energy state so that we could go back to Earth. And so this is more like that trajectory in that we're taking advantage of the moon's gravity as an assist so that we don't have to burn as much propellant.
My question is, how does it compare to Apollo 13 rather than 8?
Oh, 13, not 8. Okay, yeah, it's similar. So we got on a free return trajectory on Apollo 13, very similar to the one that we are doing now.
Okay, we'll take another question in the room over here.
I'm just wondering, I work in television, and when they're going around the moon, what are the visuals going to be like? Because I know Apollo 11, when they were live, they're black and white. And we're seeing some of the images now from the spacecraft, which we love, but they're not as grainy as they were in the Apollo days, but they're not necessarily as wonderful as maybe SpaceX gives us right now with some of their work. So what can we expect to see visually as they're going around the moon? What's it going to look like?
So I'll say that we're much further away from the moon than we were on closest approach for, say, Artemis I or even, Apollo 8, for instance, 3,000 to 4,000 nautical miles away. So the moon will look smaller. It's what I've been told is if you take a basketball at arm's length, that's about what it's going to look like from the crew's vantage point. Certainly, the camera technology is a lot better than it was in the 60s, so we'll have that advantage. We also have some really long lenses that the crew have for their handheld cameras, Nikons and Z9s. So they'll hopefully, when we get those downlinked, they'll be really sharp images that we've all come to expect.
Yeah,
modern technology.
The one thing I'll just mention, and Judd can probably jump in on this one as well, is while the camera technology that we have up there is outstanding, and we'll have very, very high resolution, high quality images, the downlink from the moon is not as great as it could be, as it is from low Earth orbit. And so it will take a little longer to get some of those data down, and sometimes I would imagine the early downloads will be somewhat reduced resolution so that we can get them down here and at least share the lower resolution, and then as we have the capability and the bandwidth to download the higher res, we'll make those available.
Go ahead.
Moises Avila, AFP, Agence France Presse. I know that more than 50 years have passed and it's a new world and new technology, but compared to the Apollo missions, what things have changed and what protocols or beliefs maybe, or traditions maybe remain?
Well, you know, when you say what has changed, I mean, certainly the computing capability in the amount of software. We have over 900,000 lines of software. And so I think the ability for the crew to engage in the systems in a very deep level through the displays. And of course, we have electronic procedures, which Judd and his team is very familiar with, which we don't need to carry paper around. There was a lot of paper procedures. And of course, the sensor capability. You know, the inertial measuring units. When we get close in, we got GPS. Everybody's familiar with that, of course. The ability for us to know exactly where we are in space, the precision by which we're able to do rendezvous, prox-ops, and docking, just even with a camera, is a huge step in technology. And so I think this is one of these things where the ability for us to utilize the technology to advance and make it easier on the crews to operate, and of course leveraging the ability for us to build a little bigger spaceship, a third larger, and allow us to fly another crew member and be able to compact that in smaller components, but yet still provide the same functionality and even more in some cases, is a huge advancement for us. So I think overall, but physics doesn't change. The teardrop shape is very efficient from an aerodynamics perspective. The Apollo giants were just very good technical engineering experts. And engineering and the physics does not change. And so we learned a lot from them in terms of the things they learned, and we leveraged off of that.
Okay, we'll take one final question here.
Thank you, Rachel. Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you all for your time tonight. A couple of quick ones for Judd. You mentioned when we spoke back in September that pad abort would be the riskiest that the crew could possibly endure. I wonder, as you saw Ascent and they ticked past those abort scenarios, how you were feeling, you know, getting further and further along the pathway. And now that the crew is in flight, I know we discussed in some previous briefings that certain abort scenarios or early returns are still possible even past TLI. At what point does it make the most sense to continue with a free return as opposed to an early U-turn? Thank you.
Yeah, so always feel great not to have to do an abort, period, right? And so I'm happy that you know, SLS performed so well, that ICPS performed so well that we didn't even have to entertain that. As far as now that we're post TLI, it's about a day or two in past TLI where it's no longer feasible to do what we call a direct abort, and it's more likely that we'll get home at the same time if we just continue on in the free return trajectory.
All right, well, with that, we'll go ahead and conclude. I want to thank our participants for joining us today. You can follow all of our mission progress in the multitude of ways we have available on nasa.gov, and we look forward to providing another update tomorrow afternoon. Thank you for joining us.